Hello, Wonderhussy here, standing on the edge of a mesa. And not just any mesa. This one here is called Mormon Mesa. And it's very aptly named because there's a lot of Mormons in this area. A lot of Mormons settled this little river valley here. That's the Virgin River. That's how you know it was Mormons that settled it. They named it the Virgin River. Anyway, this mesa rises really dramatically from the valley floor. And gosh, it's just gorgeous. And it's a gorgeous day to be here. It's kind of windy, but it's overcast, not too chilly. Just kind of a moody, awesome day. Perfect day to go off-roading and check out some cool stuff in the desert. Cool stuff in the desert, you say? Well, okay, she's in the desert, but where's the cool stuff? Well, you know, the Virgin River's pretty cool. And this mesa here is pretty cool. And the fact that it's called Mormon Mesa, well, that's pretty cool. But to me, the most interesting thing about this place is right here. This thing right here, to be precise. Did you realize that what we're looking at here is art? And as a matter of fact, did you realize the ground we're standing on here, and I think the ground my rig is parked on here, and boy howdy, there's even a really cool place to camp right on the edge there. All of this is part of the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles. That's right. This is art, and we're basically standing in an art gallery. I mean, when's the last time you were able to drive your car right into an art gallery? Or for that matter, camp in an art gallery? Okay, so I know all kinds of people have all kinds of opinions about art and what is art and what isn't art. And of course, it's all subjective. I mean, art means different things to different people. But this here is generally recognized as an artwork. It was created by this guy named Michael Heizer back in 1969. Stop for a minute and think back to what you were doing in 1969. Were you excavating giant trenches in the desert with bulldozers? Probably not. Well, this guy Michael Heizer was. I guess I wouldn't really call it a controversial piece of art, but it's kind of controversial in the sense that, well, a lot of people just don't see the point of it or get what it is. And I'll be honest with you, I have an art degree myself. I'm artsy-fartsy as they come. And I did come out here once before, oh gosh, about 5, 6, 7 years ago with a guy that I was dating. Oh, now that I think about it, it might be more like 10 years ago. Anyway, I came out here once and I didn't really get it either. So in preparation for coming back out here again today, I did some reading up on it. And I actually do have, I guess, a little bit more of an appreciation for what this is and, well, I guess what it's supposed to be. Now, before we get into all that, you might see there's a little lone figure on the other side of the mesa there. Well, believe it or not, that's actually a guy who hiked here 5 miles across the mesa with a backpack. I thought he was actually backpacking because he was one of those adorable, fresh-faced young kids who was just out adventuring around the West. He had this big backpack on with a bunch of sticks stuck in it, and he just looked like a hobo. But he said he did park about 5 miles across the mesa. He just decided to go for a walk because it's such a cool day. So I spent a little bit of time talking to him. He's over on the other side of this installation. It's a 2-part installation. Heizer excavated this channel here, and then, well, gosh, we can't see it from here. Maybe if I go out onto this point. Okay, so we're standing on the very edge of the point now. So basically what it is, he excavated this channel on this side, which you can see it's actually pretty deep and pretty long. And then on the other side of this kind of, gosh, I don't know what you would call this, but kind of a place where the mesa sort of swooshes down. On the other side, there's another channel of the same size, I think, over by where my little friend Addison is hanging out. So there's another channel that he dug just like this. And so that's why this piece is called Double Negative. From what I was reading online, I guess the artist's intent with this was that you don't really look at what's here so much as what isn't here. All the negative space that he's scooped away. And it's interesting. It looks like there's footprints down in the sand at the bottom. It almost looks like a natural canyon now. I mean, he built it in 1969, so it's been what? 42 years, and well, I guess the walls have kind of eroded a little bit, and like boulders have fallen down into it. But I guess when he first installed the piece, I'm not sure what terminology to use. When he first built the piece, it was all neatly carved away. Like the sides were just totally neat, and there was none of this junk cluttering up the front. It was just these two very neat cuts in the ground, one on each side of this natural wash, for lack of a better word. And I guess standing, I guess you're meant to stand at one end or the other and just sort of contemplate the void, the nothingness, the emptiness. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Like I said, I came here once before about 10 years ago, and you know, I like weird stuff in the desert, so I enjoyed coming out here. But I don't know. I guess it didn't really speak to me, to be honest. I'm just being honest. I'm not bagging on this guy's art. Like a lot of other people go, it's just a ditch in the ground. It ain't nothing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I found it a little bit challenging or incomprehensible, even as an art major. But I'm back here again to give it another try, because by gum, it's 10 years later. I've changed a lot in those 10 years, trust me. For starters, I ain't dating that guy anymore. So maybe I'll have a new perspective on it. I'm not really sure if you're meant to go down in it or if you're not supposed to go down in it. It doesn't say you're not supposed to, so I don't know. Maybe that might be kind of interesting to go down in it. What do you say? I mean, it looks like we won't be the first people. But like I said, all these rocks and debris, none of that was supposed to be down in here initially. But I guess that was part of the artist's original intent. He intended for it to be impermanent and not last forever. You know, he intended for nature to come back in and reclaim it. I did read that he has since changed his mind about that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's climb down into the canyon, and I'll tell you the story of Michael Heizer. Wow, it's actually really cool being down in here, almost like going into a cathedral. For starters, there's no wind down here. It's much calmer. It's very, very quiet. At least it would be if I'd shut up. You know how like sometimes you go in those Native American canyons, petroglyph sites, they sort of have that hushed, reverent cathedral feel? Well, that's sort of what I have down here in this man-made ditch. Okay, it does look like there's kind of a little trail. And there are footprints down here, so people have hiked down in here before, so I feel okay about doing this. I guess it just kind of leads to the edge or the end of this trench, and maybe we'll get a better vantage point on the opposite trench. And while we're walking, I'll tell you a little bit of what I read about Michael Heizer. Okay, so I guess he's kind of a controversial artist. I feel like, I think I know somebody who met him or knew him, and that person told me he was kind of a jerk, or was a real jerk. I mean, this is just hearsay. But he grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's from the East Bay, just like me. But both of his grandfathers, on both sides, were involved in the mining industry. So I guess he spent a lot of time out in the Southwest and the West, like roaming around, and really grew to love the landscape, and so he felt an affinity for this landscape. So even when he became an artist and moved to New York City, he only really ever made a name for himself when he started doing this large-scale land art. I think it's called land art or earth art, and it was kind of a thing back in the, well, I guess 60s, 70s. He was, I think, one of the biggest names in that movement, and probably still is. I mean, the fact that there's another person out here that actually walked over here to see this should tell you something. And this place actually does have a lot of reviews on Google. People come down here. Oh, hey, look at this. There's a fire ring right down here in the middle between these two channels. Okay, so for reference, we just walked down that trench there. I guess you'd call that like the southern trench. And then there's the edge of the mesa dropping down to the Virgin River, and then there's the other trench off there in the distance. But then here in the middle, there's this pretty substantial fire ring. It looks like it's been well used, and there's even a really friendly little stone to sit on and contemplate your fire, or turn around and contemplate the void and warm your back. But from over here, yeah, you can see the trench on that side as well. And then the whole void in the middle that we're standing on, and then the other trench there. And I guess this is as long end to end as the Empire State Building. But back to Michael Heizer himself, the guy who built this. If it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't even be standing here right now. I don't know how he identified this particular piece of land, but I do know that he bought the land to do it on. So, you know, people complaining about, sometimes people complain about federal funding of the arts. There was no public or federal funding of this project whatsoever. He bought this property with the help of an art patron, this woman named, I can't remember what her first name was. Virginia Dwan, who is noteworthy for two things. Okay, she was a patroness of the arts from New York. She's still alive. So she is a patroness of the arts. I presume she still lives in New York. She's the heiress to the 3M fortune. Okay, you know, like 3M, they make Scotch tape and all the different adhesive stuff. Well, she's one of the heiresses to that fortune, and she became a patroness of the arts, and she donated the money to Michael Heizer to buy the land to build this project. The other thing she's noteworthy for, aside, is in one of my other videos, I went to a hot spring in Las Vegas, New Mexico. Right outside Las Vegas, New Mexico, there's a really cool hot spring called Montezuma Hot Spring, and it's right outside the campus of this weird kind of college. That's a whole nother story, but there's a thing called the Diwan Light Sanctuary there that I went in at the end of the video, and it's a really cool white dome with these weird acrylic prism windows that create these light patterns. Virginia Dwan, come to find out, I didn't know until I was researching this double negative, she also funded that. So I knew her last name sounded familiar because it's kind of a weird last name, D-W-A-N, Dwan. But anyway, she gave him the money so that he could come out here to the Nevada desert and dig these trenches and build this art. Yeah, I know. I feel kind of weird saying it myself, but again, art is subjective, so what do I know? Anyway, I guess Michael Heizer ended up deeding the land back to Virginia Dwan, and essentially giving her the art piece. But she ended up selling it or giving it to the Museum of Contemporary Art of Los Angeles, who still owns it. And I guess if you go on their website, there's a picture of this there. But I guess Heizer himself was really opposed to having pictures of this thing displayed as part of any exhibit because he felt that you really had to be here to experience it, and that looking at a picture of it wouldn't be the same. And I agree, actually, because, well, you can go on Google Maps right now and put in double negative Michael Heizer, and you can zoom right on in satellite view and see what it looks like from above. Because I did that myself this morning before I drove out here. But it's a totally different experience being here and being down in it. Like just walking through those trenches and finding this campsite in the middle. And yeah, it is totally different experience. It feels I'm maybe kind of mystical in a way. And I'm not one to use a term like that, well, lightly, if ever. So I guess Michael Heizer allowed Virginia Dwan to give the piece or sell the piece. I think she just donated it to the Museum of Contemporary Art with the contingency that they do nothing to preserve it. Because, like I was saying earlier, part of his initial vision was for nature to gradually reclaim it and for it to degrade naturally. Like I also mentioned earlier, I think he had a change of heart about that in the intervening decades because, well, you know, of course there's different stories online, but from what I read, he had this rivalry, this arch rivalry with another land artist named Robert Smithson. Man, I just love any kind of drama, especially artist beefs. So this other land artist, Robert Smithson, I guess, well, he's best known for being the creator of Spiral Jetty, which is maybe the most famous, probably to Michael Heizer's chagrin, most famous piece of large-scale land art. It's a big spiral-shaped rock jetty up in the Salt Lake of Utah. Well, this guy, Robert Smithson, I guess he started out as Michael Heizer's friend, maybe even kind of mentor, I'm not sure, but they traveled around together a bit, and I guess he got into the whole idea of land art and the West through Michael Heizer. But Michael Heizer, I don't know if he was just jealous because Spiral Jetty became such a big deal, but he really didn't think much of Smithson. He said he was no more than a devious tin horn who had never been further west than the Sunoco station in Hackensack, New Jersey. What a quote. I mean, yeah, he does sound kind of like a difficult person or like an irascible type person, but all that being said, Man, I would love to meet him. Michael Heiser, if you by some random chance happen to be watching this video, or if anybody who personally knows Michael Heiser happens to be watching this video, and you think we might get along, please send me an email. I would love to meet him. Just for the fact that, I like meeting interesting people. I want to see for myself if he's a jerk or not. I'd like to tell him how much I enjoyed his piece. But of course, I do have another ulterior motive. And if you know anything about art, you've probably already guessed what that is. Michael Heiser went on from this piece, and I'm sure he built a bunch of other stuff, but he's been working on this huge masterpiece, not all that far from here in the Nevada desert, for, gosh, I want to say like 20 or 30 years now. Okay, I have cell signal. I just looked it up. 40 years. He started working on this project in 1972. It's called City. And I think it's supposed to be when it's finished, it will be one of the biggest art pieces in the entire world. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a big bunch of crazy landforms that he built. It's not like he just dug trenches. He actually built stuff. And I think it's one of those things that's best appreciated from above, like in an airplane maybe. But you look down on it and it's this crazy giant geometric bunch of shapes and lines. And I didn't do a whole lot of reading into that one, but I think it probably has all kinds of meaning. And I bet it's actually really cool. Anyway, it's not that far from here. It's up the 93, like if you're going towards Hico. It's past Hico, like if you're going towards Rachel. You want to go see them aliens? It's right outside Area 51. He owns a bunch of property up there. I don't know if he does or a patron bought the land, but I guess he's been living up there since 1972, working on this giant project. So that's my ulterior motive in wanting to meet Michael Heiser. Secondary motive, my primary motive is I just really want to meet him. He sounds like an interesting person. But yeah, I'd love to see City. I mean, it's closed to the public. It's been closed to the public since 1972. It was supposed to open in 2020, according to Wikipedia. It was supposed to open to the public. I don't know if that got pushed back because of COVID or if he just wasn't finished with it or what was going on. But I haven't heard anything about it being open. And well, surely you think I, of all people, would have heard something about that. Can you imagine if they had an art opening there? Like, you know how art galleries have art openings? Like, there's an amazing photo taken by, I think it's Diane Arbus, black and white photo of these people at an art gallery opening. Oh, it's so amazing because they're just total posers, and it's a great photo. Look it up. Take my word for it. It's good stuff. But it's funny to think about an art opening outside Area 51 in the desert at this giant weird Earth city. Sounds like my kind of opening. Instead of everyone wearing all black and eating canapes and drinking, whatever dry ass Chardonnay or whatever they drink at an art opening. Well, I like to think it'd be people dressed kind of like me. Jeans and boots and flannels and everybody just hanging out drinking beer. How about that? How does that sound? Hey, Heiser, if you want to hire me to plan your opening, call me. But anyway, going back to his rivalry with Robert Smithson, from what I read, that might be why he changed his mind about preserving this place. I guess Robert Smithson was really into the idea of things decaying naturally, and well, because Smithson was into it, Heiser was against it. This is a very oversimplified understanding of what I read this morning online in about 30 minutes, so, don't get angry with me if I'm wrong. What do I know? All I know is, like I said, an artist beef, especially like a large-scale land artist beef, is okay by me. Sounds like a reality show. Next week on Land Art Wars, Robert Smithson calls Michael Heiser a pussy. Or how about next week on Land Art Wars, Michael Heiser's city finally has its big opening. Will Robert Smithson crash it? Can you imagine? That'd be a top-rated show. Man, it actually got a lot calmer down here. And I don't know if that's just because I'm down in the piece. I was up above it. Now I'm down in it. Or if the wind actually did die down. If the wind died down, then I can bust out my drone and see if I can get some footage overhead. And we might be able to better appreciate what this thing looks like from above. Although, to be fair, my drone, I just have a DJI Mavic Mini and it doesn't go very high. I feel like you really need to be like in an airplane or you know, get some serious elevation to be able to look down and see all of this and really appreciate it. And also, incidentally, I'm not sure of the legality of flying a drone here. I thought it was BLM land, but then if it's owned by the Museum of Contemporary Art, why they might not want me flying a drone here. I don't know. Huh, it looks like my little hiking friend left. He probably got tired of listening to me babbling. I'm sure there's an echo here. He could probably hear every word I was saying about him. You know, like those domes where you whisper something on one side and the person on the other side can hear it. It's probably like one of them situations. Okay, well, now I've walked all the way to the edge of this trench, and you can see that trench there. It does not have a fire pit in front of it, so I'd say I picked the right trench to walk down. Okay, one last view of the middle of Michael Heiser's double negative, beautiful Virgin Valley. There's the one side. I guess that'd be like the north or the east side. That's the Utah side anyways. And then we're going back over here to the Nevada side. Straight ahead. Golly, it is so beautiful out here today. And like I said, it's only an hour-ish from Vegas. Pretty much any car could make it. The last couple miles of the drive are kind of on rocky, rough road. But I think if you went slow, just about any car could make it. Definitely high clearance would be a plus. I don't think you would need four-wheel drive because it's all on top of a flat mesa. It's not like there's any, you know, washes or anything you have to cross. So, man, if you're into this kind of stuff, I definitely recommend next time you're in Vegas, come check it out. You just get on I-15, drive north to this quaint little Mormon farming town called Overton, and then you take a left on Yamashita Street and it takes you right up top of the mesa and straight on out here to the Peace. And as for me, I am definitely coming back to camp here. By gum, I'm going to camp here. And, well, you might be able to guess what I'll do while I'm here. I'll make myself a big old fire, and then I'll brew up some of my special tea, and then I'll sit by the fire and drink tea and contemplate the void while in the void. Ooh. Man, I bet the stars out here are amazing too. I mean, yeah, it's overcast today, but we're in the middle of nowhere, okay? We're like an hour northeast of Vegas. Those mountains there, on the other side of that's the north rim of the Grand Canyon. There aren't any towns anywhere around here other than, well, Overton, and it's pretty small. So I'll bet you anything the stars are out of sight, man. And just sitting here having a fire and drinking tea, sounds amazing. It's interesting because walking back through the trench, it kind of smells like being in a mine at it. Because I've done a decent amount of mine exploring in my videos. I've been in a mine or three, and it has that like dusty smell inside a mine at it, which is kind of cool because, like I said earlier, Michael Heiser has a family history of mining. Both his grandfathers were in the mining industry. Wow, before I climb out of this canyon though, check out these walls. I mean, it's totally a soft, sandy bottom. And then there's where all the debris has started falling in and choking the mouth of this trench. But yeah, look at the side of the walls. It almost does look like a natural canyon carved by water. I guess it's not quite as smooth. And then all these striations here. I wonder if this was done by the bulldozer that he used to excavate it. Huh, or I guess those are just layers of sandstone. Oh, interesting though. And then there's like a layer of something else in between here. Speaking of bulldozers though, even if those lines weren't caused by a bulldozer, that's literally how he built this thing. He just got a bulldozer and just dug the trenches. And then I think he hired a guy. I read a quote from him where he said he hired this guy to shove everything, because everything that he dug out of here, they just shoved out the end so it went down that natural slope. And he said the guy had to drive the bulldozer like right up to the edge to knock it over. And well, he said something to the effect of that guy being really brave. I feel like I read another article about Michael Heiser where he's got a few people on his payroll up at city, local, like, you know, local ranch type guys, like manly men, you know, not them big city liberals. And I guess they like him okay. You know, he provides them a living. And, you know, it's like anything. Of course, one person says you're a jerk. Next thing you know, some dingling on YouTube says you're a jerk, and then everybody thinks you're a jerk. Hey, he might be the nicest person on the face of this earth. What do I know? Oh, I don't know, man. Now that I've climbed back up top, it is still pretty windy up here. I think it's too windy to fly my drone, because I really don't want my drone to go launching off into the void. I mean, contemplating the void is one thing. Having to retrieve one's drone from it is another. It looks like there's something else on that point out there. I don't think it has anything to do with double negative, but hey, since I'm out here anyway and we still have a little bit of daylight, let's go check it out.